channel. Today I was quite busy with pickling and conservating most of the fruits and vegetables that I bought last week. So my hands are shaking, my feet are wobbling, so I'm not able to stand next to the loom to do the heddles. So for today's stream, I decided to make the video how to make the perfect mari for embroidery. These are the maris that I made already. There's just a small part that I already prepared, but still the process is going very, very fast. I have to make about 196 to match my goal for this year. So you can imagine everything is quite hectic. I don't know if video is recording. Oh, sound is recording or not. So for the perfect maris, all should be about the same size. I use this, it's called the Stangen circle. It's the ruler that measures the circumference. And for the mari that I have made, the base is 6 centimeters and roughly about 8 millimeters. That's before I add the thread, the final finishing thread. This is just the base with the wool. This is my sample, so if I get my the ruler slides off, this is my sample which I measure, and when I measure it, the ball should be go slightly scratching the feet of the ruler. So that's the stuff. As of for the threads, usually for the mari, which is about 24-25 centimeters in circumference, I use the fine Angora thread. You can see it's almost lace weight, but still it's quite thick. The problem is the bigger the styrofoam base that you're trying to wrap, the finer the thread it should be, because when you're piling up the layers, sometimes you might get the bumps. And if in simple maris, it's not really important if you're doing the swirls or something like that. But the more complicated maris you make, the more ideal surface should be. So for the mari like that, this is about 1.5 inch in circumference. The bigger one I have is, even though it says 2.3 inches. I don't know why the difference is so big. Anyway, this one is getting bigger. If I wrap it up, I've got the sample here. This is the mari that I get from these balls. These are the maris from the one I showed before. And for the bigger ones, something like this, the 80 millimeters, 8 centimeters, I get finer thread. So this one is mohair and acrylic. It's just 100 grams, 500 meters. For the bigger mari, I would use something like this. Even though that it says the yardage is smaller than the one I showed earlier, this one is actually quite thin. You can see my fingers, it's all peeling plums, and so got all the stuff on the nails. It's not, cannot be removed. And this is finer if you compare them. And for the bigger maris, I use lace weight, or absolutely thin one, so it's easy to control the thickness of the yarn that's piling up. And well, that's enough for the yarn. I will talk about wrapping up. This is the threads that I'll be using as a final surface, final layer. So what I get is the mari, and I wrap it up, just trying to keep, because once you start wrapping, it tends to slide. So after a couple of wraps, it will be easier. But the first couple of wraps, it's very difficult to control, because styrofoam is quite slippery and yarn tends to slide off. So at this stage, it's easier to control. And this is what I was talking about. When you do the couple of wraps, they stand up above the surface. It's easy to control at this level. Just keep wrapping up. And what usually we do when we wrap the skein, we do it all like this. It all piles up. This is what we should avoid in wrapping Mari. Just twist it in different directions so that all areas are covered evenly. Just slightly twist the Mari, twist the styrofoam ball. And wrap it up until all empty spaces are filled. And then I'll measure the circumference of the ball. Usually this, excuse me, you can see, just wrap and turn so that the threads are not piling up in one space, so that all the threads are distributed evenly. If you notice that something like this happens, it piles up, you can already feel it. You can either fix it with wrapping in other areas where the thing is missing. That means that the layer of wool is quite thin in that part and quite thick on others. Or if you feel that nothing can be done, just slightly push it into the styrofoam. That's why I prefer to use the styrofoam, so you can always correct the bulges. And of course I got a knot here from inner thread. Stick it in and continue wrapping. The basic part is got another ½ centimeter to wrap. That means about 2.5 millimeters on each side. And you can see there's a bulge, there's a hole here, so I'll start filling up at this area. Can't even hold the Mari. I'm so tired. Vinegar and garlic and peeling and cleaning and washing and canning. So that's why I don't do carpets today. So you always should avoid the parallel layer of threads, of yarn, because this parallel or even the crossing at the same point will create a bulge, like something like this. But generally, keep twisting and turning until you get the nice and even Mari. Once I finish stream, I will add this video to the Mari playlist, so you can always find it there. I already posted that like ages ago about the same subject. Still about 2 millimeters to go. So it's easy to learn to wrap Mari on small balls and then slowly eventually move to the bigger ones. The bigger ones are obviously they are bigger and the thread is finer. And you can see it's like really fine thread. That is very important when you're doing big maris for the CD5 and more complicated patterns, apart from doing the traditional Kiko patterns. They're all the same. They will be the same. And this is the final stage where you can check that all the layers are flat. There's nothing sticking out. The mari is nice and round and smooth. And still 1 millimeter to go. I prefer it to be slightly bigger, so it's kind of it's not sliding through, but it's kind of squishing, but not too much. So it feels a slight resistance sliding through the ruler. You can find these rulers in hardware stores with all the carpenter shops or anything or something like that. They might look different, but generally this is the standard one. You can see it's still sliding through easily, but what I want is I want to hear this sound when it's sliding, but it's loose on this end. So I'll do some more ups. Until I hear still this end slides in easily. So just 0.5 millimeter to fill, and the wool part is done. That's the easiest part because we don't see what's happening under the surface, but the final layer has to be done very careful because the quality of wrapping on the surface is really important. Just some more. Almost done with the skin. This is what I want. I want both sides slightly scratching the ruler. And I can remove the thread. So this is the base, this is the standard one. And on top of that, you can do any thread. For this kind of thickness, I would use mostly, it's about 3/4 of the bobbin. And again, the same way, you twist and turn, wrap and turn. As I read in one of the chats on how thick should be the layer, is that the first layer of the thread is until you cover all the wool thread, and then about the same amount of yarn, of sewing thread on top. So you get something about 1.5–2 millimeters of the finishing thread wrapped up around the wool. And that would be another, I don't know, 15 minutes, 15–20 minutes. It's nice to have this, the bowl where you can keep the small bobbin because with the bigger one you don't need one because it stands still perfectly, doesn't fall. But with a small one it will always hanging around and grabbing all the lint from the workshop. So I prefer to keep it in a bowl or in a jar or in a box. Well, anything that contains, that keeps the bobbin from jumping out and rolling into lint. And of course dog hair. It's a shedding season, so I have to sweep the apartment two times a day, because Rudy sheds like hell. And sometimes I wonder if he sheds so much, when I sweep I can get something like 1/3 of the dog each day, and he's still got fur, and he's still got more fur than I have on my head. He's got more fur on his tail. Well, the surface is still, you can see the yarn, the wool yarn through the final thread. And the other way to determine when to stop is as I wrap it up and I'll hide all the wool under the layer, you will notice that you get all these bumps that haven't been fixed. All of the uneven parts, they're kind of sticking out right now. So kind of instead of nice smooth ball, you got the polygon, and you have to wrap it up until all these sharp edges are smoothed out. You can actually press them in, roll the ball so it falls into the even shape, and then until you get a nice smooth surface. That's when you're about probably done. And I have to catch the ball. That's what I said. It's already picked up the lint. Now the surface is almost covered. There's still some little eyes of wool looking through. And this is what I said. If you can see these kind of sharp edges, that's what we have to work on until all of them are nice and smooth and all the gaps are filled. It's kind of the polishing. And even at this stage, make sure that you wrap, you don't keep all the threads parallel. You always have to twist and turn, and so they're going in different directions, because when you do the embroidery and you catch on the threads that are laying parallel, so when you pick up insert the needle, it will just slide through without holding the thread in place. So the pattern that you're trying to make will be ruined. So this is the most important part. Just make sure that there's no parallel lines or going all in the same direction. Just wrap it up as many as possible. Now I've done 5 minutes already, and I went to the stage where the wool is almost invisible. Just some bits like this over here, the see-through. So that means I have to work for another 5 minutes until I get all that done. At the same time, you can see it's getting more and more smooth, so there's no more sharp edges. So 25 minutes of steaming. I will finish this mari. And it will be ready for embroidery. And I still have to make, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done. So I have to make another 190 to make, and I have to finish them, finish embroidery by the middle of December. That's when my customers stop buying maris, tamaris. So I have to make the main batch by the end of November. Like these one, the classic ones that I make, like these. These are the standard ones. They're sold like crazy. And I'll probably spend more time making bigger ones, the more complicated patterns. I already started this one. I keep it as a sample. I remember I promised to make the video for this one, so I got the mari prepared. This was actually made with this thread and the size 40 thread for for tailoring, sewing. I always get confused with this pronunciation. But anyway, got 2 more minutes, no, 3 more minutes to wrap. And as you can see, all the threads are going in different directions. So when you start embroidering, when you insert the needle stucks in between all these crisscross threads, and it stays in instead of sliding. So always remember there shouldn't be any parallel lines, especially layer over layer, because that's the worst thing that you can find in stitching. You can place that area at the those parallel threads when you do the mari. You can place them at the obi area where it doesn't really matter, because in obi you're just wrapping up. If you're doing the obi maki, the wrapping. But generally try to avoid that, because anyway, try to learn and make it perfect without any excuses that I will use it for simple projects that involves obi maki. And let me see. Well, I still got some more threads to make. Probably half of that will go to this mari. And after making 4 or 5 of these, I'll get knot thread to make 1 extra. For the bigger maris like that, I use the whole skein, the whole bobbin. And for the bigger ones, like this, maybe 1.5, because the bigger the mari, the more thread obviously it will take. And for those, I use the bobbins like that. This would probably fit, if I would use that, this would probably fit for about 3 big ones or 4 to 5 small ones. And this one looks more or less okay. That's why my finished temari, they're always about the same size. A couple of 1 or 2 millimeters when you're doing the marking tapes, they're always exactly the same, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters difference. It depends on amount of threads that I use if I wrap it from the bigger bobbins. But if I wrap it from these, they're all identical. And well, I guess that's it. Just the final touches to make sure that no more thread stuck here. And probably, yeah, just a few more wraps. Because it's nice to have the thicker layer of the finishing layer, so when you stitch it deep, you don't get to the wool. So when you do the stitch, the wool doesn't show through. Because if you're saving on the finals, on the covering yarn thread, you will see the wool part definitely. So it's better to do more than to do less. Oh, I guess still some more to do. This is in case you're using this ideal, which is a thick one, not the skeins like this, which is the fake ones. But if you're using the original ideal, they're just enough to make one and slight leftovers. Well, I guess I'd call that an end. You could use it the whole thing, but I bought all the skeins I could find in our shops, so I'm kind of really short on skeins. I got about 5 bobbins of each color, of 2 shades. And where is it? They're kind of slightly off, just 1 shade away. So I'm trying to make 6 skeins out of 5 bobbins. So I'll get probably something like a few more wraps. That's Rudy barking outside, showing that he wants to eat. That's it. The perfect Mari. And we can see all the threads are going in different directions. Those are the havoc of the threads. That is what we need to make. And the final touch is get the needle from the stole that I was about to make. And the Mari should be quite tight. So if you feel that it's soft and squishy, that means that you haven't wrapped it really tight. So one more final step. And this Mari is ready for embroidery. Hope next time I will do the online Mari with this, the Mari with this one, or maybe the other one that I will make. So that's it. Just clip off the thread. And the perfect Mari is ready. Beautiful, isn't it? It was just a styrofoam ball before and the skein of yarn and the bobbin of wool of thread. And now that we have the perfect mari to stitch. And just to show what I've done earlier this year, luckily I haven't given away that to my customers yet. This is what I usually make for Christmas. That's the red batch. Still have to make one more red. This is that left the almond flour that left from Novruz. There's one just aside. We'll do that later. Another batch of that. And got these blue ones. Got some swirls here. The blue. This one is the lotus. Well, it doesn't look like lotus, but it's a small version of the lotus that I was trying to make with the yarn that I'm using instead of the DMC threads that I use for the big maris, for the lotus flower, the daisies. This one is left from the spring, which is the from Novruz, which was celebrating the water, the awakening of water. So it's kind of ice and water and snow. Maris like that for Ukraine. And I still got some more. These actually will be the sets. The blue and the white tamari. I've got some more here wrapped up. This one is something I promised to make. I also got the mari prepared. So I'll do that hopefully this or next week. This is exactly the same mari that will be here. It got simple 10 instead of simple 8s that I usually do, the simple ones. This one is a little bit bigger and more complicating, and a brighter one. This one is a daffodil left from the Novruz. This one is also left from Novruz, the awakening of fire, but it also can be used for the Halloween. I've already given away to the shop the Asanoha on different colors, also including the Halloween one. And this one I made when I ran out of the dark green. I couldn't find it in our shops, but then later I found one small shop that had 3 last skeins in the country. So I was so happy to acquire them. So I started making this, but I still make these with decided to make the blue with the neon green because it looks brighter on the dark blue. When you're doing the dark green on the dark blue, it kind of loses that doesn't look really bright and shiny. But this is the what's the word that in English? It's the God, I forgot that name, but it's quite thick polyester with a bit of shining in it. It's slightly thicker than the one I use for embroidery. It still looks nice, very festive. So as you can imagine, I still have to make about 180 maris like this, and then the rest 16 will be made with will be the bigger ones for special customers that already got all the sets of the small maris and want something more, something bigger and something more non-standard ones. So this is what I usually do when I don't weave. I do this, or either I'm doing Irish crochet lace. You can, if you're interested, you can check the Irish crochet lace by Alena Salimova. There's another YouTube channel that I lead directly, strictly to Irish crochet lace there. And well, I guess that's it for today. I think I've showed everything that I planned for today. Also, all this thread, the markup lines, they're almost identical, just a couple of millimeters here to No, they are different, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters in one or the other, but generally they're, if you check my recycle bin, all the markup lines will be about the same size. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks for watching, and you can write down in comments if you want to know more information to be covered about Maris. You're welcome. I'll make another stream or video for that. And thanks for joining me tonight. Bye.